When you think of community, what do you think of? Is it fellowship of common people or a safe space for the unconventionals? Is it a shelter you seek for security or a sanctuary to unleash your boldness? Do we choose our community or does community choose us? One of Hope College's core values is to be a caring community. But what does that look like for everybody? Does community flow through the buildings of Hope College or does it trickle towards a certain pond of people? Maybe Hope College feels like home, and maybe it feels like an obligated visit to a relative's house. Maybe Hope College is a place where everyone feels welcome, or maybe it's a place that welcomes only a part of who we are. We wanted to get answers about what community looked like for different students on Hope's campus, specifically students who feel they have been invited into unwelcoming doors. We also want to see whether this sense of belonging students often search for is forced, confined, or liberated. First, we needed to dive into the sacred stories which created who and where Hope is today, our past. Our first stop is a trip to the Teal Center for Research to dig up a little bit more about the lives of students of color on Hope's campus.
So were there any incidents where you might have been mistreated?
This is Floyd Brady, belonging to Hope's class of 1968. Brady was a record-leading basketball player at Hope College. Even more, he was an activist for Black liberation and racial justice. In 1968, Brady led a vigil following Martin Luther King's assassination. In 2003, he decided to come back to Hope and share his experience.
I remember one day, Friday evening, when some kids were in a car driving down Main Street, and I got some people that hollered out the windows some things that wasn't too pleasant. There were subtle situations that occurred where people weren't even conscious of saying things that may have been offensive. People talking about folk who live in the inner city and lifestyles and things of that nature. But what that suggested to me was the absence of understanding and knowledge and appreciation for the struggles that those people were going through. The Bible talks about the importance of, in all thy getting, get understanding. And I think that that was pretty much my approach at Hope, trying to understand where people were coming from. So the fact that that had occurred was not a biggie. The fact that people periodically would say things that obviously demonstrated their lack of understanding of people who lived in the inner city or people of color. The fact that there were Latinos, Hispanic people around that, and Native Indians around who were not treated well. I was conscious of that. The fact that my presence on campus, because of my involvement in a variety of things, I was conscious of those who didn't have the high visibility that I had. Even in the midst of those who attempted to say or do things that were offensive, I rose above that. I didn't deal with that, because the bigger picture, that's just you have to always put things in context. And so my parents having very clearly told me when I left coming to Hope, they gave me the 7 last words: boy, don't go up there and lose your common sense. We all, me and my family and people within the African American community, all recognized the unique role that Dr. King played in the life of America and the impact that he was having in America. I think from my perspective, he probably mounted the greatest single movement of the 20th century. So I think we were conscious of that. I think so that I remember very distinctly, I was coming back from Grand Rapids in a van, and we had been in Grand Rapids most of the day, and driving back, and must have been about 4 of us in the car, and laughing and joking, and all of a sudden we heard on the radio that Dr. Martin Luther King had been shot, and it was stunning. I mean, it was devastating. It was remarkable. It was unbelievable. It was very challenging. It was difficult. It was hard. It was gut-wrenching. It challenged your sanity. It awakened your spirit. It made you question your direction. It impacted me and a variety of others in a very profound way. So when I got back to campus, a few more of us got together and we talked a little bit, and I got a call from President Vanderwerf and asking me, was acknowledging what had happened and asking me about my feelings and thoughts, and then suggesting that we should have a vigil, a march from campus down to the park. You get flashbacks, you get little feelings about what happened and what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what you saw, what you experienced. And driving in today, still Holland, Michigan. So a sprinkling of people of color here and there. But that day 35 years ago was a somber day, very somber. Much like today, I think it's overcast day, as if the heavens recognize the gravity of the situation.
We asked for all the files they had on students of color on campus, and we noticed the community that currently frames hope is drastically different from that in the past. We came across a ton of diversity and inclusion events that featured trailblazing minority speakers such as Maya Angelou, Diane Nash, and Jesse Jackson. Some of these events were often a week long. Imagine talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion for a week long. Students of color routinely wrote in the Anchor, describing their traumatic experiences on campus, yet highlighting the power and magic of their culture. Writing gave students a sense of liberation from the burdens they carried and an opportunity to freely and unashamedly express who they are. We found minority houses that students occupied. There, they found a safe haven where awareness and identity were consistently restored and renewed. Looking through these documents, we wanted to know what changed. Why does community and culture look different on campus now? Does trivializing situations determine a decision between strength or weakness? And if so, who determines which path we want to forego?
I come here today to talk about how I feel, and I feel like that we are treated differently than other people, and I don't like how we're treated, and just because of our color doesn't mean anything to me.
It's just the way I feel. problems alone. And I really can't take it no more. I've been fighting temptations, my Lord. I'm young and I'm restless. And I really can't help it. I never felt selfish before. I've been living so reckless, I know. Tell me, Lord, can you help me? I said, Lord, can you help me?
Something that has been long overdue for Hope's present community is a place where students of color feel a sense of belonging. After many weary years, in the fall of 2020, the Keppel House was officially handed to the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. What does community mean to you? This is Javon Willis, Director of CDI and Overseer of the Keppel House, a place many students of color agreed was the first time they felt they belonged on campus. We asked Javon and other faculty and students of color on campus about community, Hope College, and Keppel House.
Community to me means connection, but then I think also connected to that connection is this commitment to a shared vision.
So when I think of community, I think of a place where I feel like I belong, whether it's amongst peers or mentors, a place where I feel included, but also a place that has diverse opinions, diverse people.
It's a place where I feel comfortable.
A community either shares some sort of value, some sort of experience, or it could be a location.
I think community to me can be a lot of different things. It can come together in ways that you're not expecting. But in general, it's just people supporting one another.
Having a sense of belonging, I think. Finding that place where you fit in and you're not being judged.
People coming together and being able to be who they are, to come as they are, and to be accepted.
So I think community means being in a space with a lot of other people who are collectively shaping each other.
I think psychologically it actually would make more sense is they were oppressing people and they had to come up with a rationalization to justify that oppression.
Tell me, have you heard your hair doesn't move the right way? Your hips shouldn't move to that sway? Or here's my favorite, you speak so well, who taught you how to articulate that way?
Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter!
We want you guys to help us help you, because PASA is here for the people.
With the goal to help Latino students discover their gifts and abilities, but also connect them with inspiration from other Latino leaders.
BSU Thanksgiving that we're having on Saturday, November 20th, we want everyone to come out. Everything. Culture means everything to me. Just being closer to my culture and who I am, just knowing who I am and where I come from.
The activities and social norms that are shared within a community are what like embody culture.
I mean, when I think of culture, I think of the food, the people, the music, dance, the way that people express themselves.
Thinking for myself, as a mixed race person, it's been interesting for me to see what different parts from my family, where different things come from, and kind of what things my family has created.
Ooh. Culture is made up of all the ways people have been socialized, and it comes out in the way people interact.
Jumping a question mark in the little blonde girl.
Yes!
laughing like
Puerto Rico se dice, pero ¿cómo no
I
sabes
said
decirlo?
it
Pero,
right.
por el amor de Dios.
Please help us welcome Latin sensation.
I think every place, every organization, there is a culture. Hope has a culture. There's a way, a Hope way of the ways that we do things or business here at Hope. And so, so when I think of culture, I think particular to where are we at? Hope College. Last week, yesterday. I think being in the Keppel House and the ways that I get to work with our student organizations, I would say that that's something that I've seen and I feel like it's more readily available or accessible to be able to see in action. The BSU Thanksgiving on Saturday, I think those are pictures or examples of seeing that in motion.
The one that happened most recently to me was recently in the Keppel House when I think it was the first event that BSU had back from the semester, and it was just a packed house, and it was really cool to see that any which way you turned, there were people a part of this organization. Everybody was laughing, having a good time.
Yeah, so when I think of a place that I felt community or culture within Hope, I definitely think of the Keppel House and the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and the family that I feel like that I've created here.
Well, I really can only think of one, and that's CDI.
I definitely think that the community here at Keppel that we have with CDI, it's been a staple for me at Hope.
I don't know if it was a specific moment, more of like a combination of little moments.
I think about a couple different situations related to elections, national elections, and how, because of people's political opinions and the political climate on a national level, how that impacted what community felt like here, and it felt broken, and trust was lacking, and maybe respect was lacking.
I think I experienced a loss of community or culture at Hope when I started a little bit within the CDI doing the Step to Success program as a student freshman, coming into Hope, and then I lost touch with the CDI for about 2 years. And within that time, I just didn't have people that I was surrounded by that looked like me or that had similar experiences to me. And I think those were the 2 darkest years that I think I've experienced, both mentally, physically, and more so spiritually as well.
But even in those moments, I think I felt like the demonstration of a supportive community is the ability to stay intact even through moments like that. And so I think in many ways I was pleasantly surprised that this MSO community wasn't as disjointed or disconnected as it could have been. And I think that's in many ways a testament of students' commitment.
I think one is with my friend who was talking to me about how she is like the only Black student in all of her classes this semester. Or a resident that I spoke to last year telling me 2/3 of the way through her freshman year, I didn't realize that I wasn't the only one who had the beliefs that I do in terms of just not being Christian. I didn't realize I wasn't the only one until this moment, like having lunch with you. And like that's such a long time to feel alone.
Hope's culture is very like white Republican conservative, I guess is the best way I would put it. like very conservative traditional values about pretty much everything, and if you don't fit into those values, you're gonna see it and you're gonna feel it.
Well, I think Hope is a product of its environment, and the environment is primarily white Dutch Christians.
It's very privileged, and sometimes it's hard to, it's hard to find your own identity when you're surrounded by people who've kind of assimilated together.
I think it's definitely closed-minded. I think the culture at Hope is not accepting of those that are different. And I think, most importantly, I think this school is not not willing to change.
It's just really hard to change and to have more DEI work, diversity, equity, inclusion work on campus. And it kind of just seems like it's not frowned upon, but it's just really hard to accept the change, it seems, sometimes to us.
It's like it's part of the syllabus. It's like,
yeah.
I guess I gotta talk about DEI.
It seems like it's something just a part of the syllabus.
It's routine.
Instead of like something that's actually, we see actions behind.
The school talks about wanting to serve and lead in a global society, and I think not only do they fail, but they fail in a way that like they don't really prepare the students here to go out there and lead in global societies that they can't even serve while here at Hope.
Unfortunately. But I think it also creates a great opportunity. When we talk about inclusion or making room, I think sometimes it's really hard to understand what does that mean, what does that look like? How do we create environments that really care for, nurture, and protect students in ways that honor their experiences, but I think also take into consideration the other experiences that are around in this campus space.
Specifically for Prism, Keppel House is kind of that symbol of belonging. Prism was only recently allowed to exist on campus, and we didn't really have a home. We were kind of just like this group, and we went where we could and we did what we could, but now we like kind of have a home basically.
I think it's been one of the most meaningful things to date in terms of I think the ability to make space or room when we talk about opportunities for inclusion. I think the Keppel House is a game changer.
For BSU, it's been everything for us though. It's been amazing, the turnouts that we've had here this semester alone. It's been honestly a game changer. For people to understand that they can come here and like you said, see people that look like them, and just to feel comfortable in the spot that, you know, it's yours. You know what I'm saying? Like that's really important to a lot of students.
Having the Keppel House allows students who feel on the margins, who are on the margins, who are minoritized, to have a space where they can be who they are, where they can feel safe, where they can feel like people get me here, people understand my story.
Like, I think this community would be important anywhere, but the fact that like it's one of the few places that people can go to feel like themselves in a sea of like, you know, people that don't look like you, I think makes this place very crucial.
Keppel House is a place where people can come and feel safe, they can come and feel protected, they can come and feel like they have a family, and support, most importantly. So Keppel House is a battery, and the more students that come here to recharge, the better that they can go out and tackle what they need to tackle.
I think space is always valuable on a small college campus, and so when something of value is given or allocated, it means that value is being found in that place or being assigned to that group.
In many ways, I would say not only is the Keppel House have such an important function, I think currently to this campus, but in many ways it is the answer to prayers that have come way before me.
I think it's too small, and we're growing, and this has been the first semester to really show that the house gets full, like I kind of talked about earlier.
I believe the Keppel House and the occupancy, this is not going to be big enough. It's not going to be enough room. We'll continue to need more space. And so even as we think about that or anticipate that, I think in many ways the Keppel House is allowing us to have a better sense of some of those realities that can inform, I think, the future work and ability for us to continue to make sure that we can serve students well.
You know, it could just be a hub of a whole bunch of different people that come together and it's like
hub for culture,
like a melting pot, as they say. Like
yeah.
It's just it comes together and just like come together beautifully. I think that like no matter how well we use the space, like there are things that we have to say like, oh, like we deserve better than this. And like I think until we get that, let's make the best use of this. But the limitations might be that I hope that we don't lose sight of that, you know, there are better things that we can ask for, should ask for, and should fight to get.
For CDI and our staff, we think of ourselves as guardians of culture. And it allows us, I think, to do things that we haven't been able to do because we didn't have space.